So we've documented the patient's reason for visit. Let's add some history to this patient. So we're going to come down to our history icon. If you notice, this is the same information that's on that face sheet back at our SpongeBob here, but this is where we come to edit that. Now, our nurses and CMAs have been trained to do the allergies, the social history, and medication, but as providers, we need to add the further additional information here. So let's go into problem list here. And you see the patient already has diagnosis, lymphoma, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, but we need to add another diagnosis. With this, again, we've got a couple different methods we can do that. If we go to short list, you'll notice that we've already preloaded some of the more common things. So let's go into gastrointestinal here. And we'll say that the patient has a problem with colitis. When we click that, it pops up a detail box, and so we can add more details into this. In this specific one, it doesn't have a lot of details to add, but we can always come down to our comments and we can say it was diagnosed in High Point Regional Hospital by colonoscopy. Now, if we know when this happened, we can always add a date up here. So if we click on this, we can type in a date, or if we're not for sure, we can go and look at a calendar, and we can say that it was Monday the 3rd, and we pop that in, and notice the computer goes ahead and starts to age that. The other thing we can do is we can change this from an active to an inactive or resolved. Or if there's an error, you can always put that as an error. Significance, this is something you may want to add to kind of remind yourself how severe things were. We'll say this was moderate. And when we click OK, you see down here at the bottom, we've now added that diagnosis of colitis. It's diagnosed at High Point Regional by colonoscopy, and it's got the date of that diagnosis. Say we need to search for a specific medical history. Say the patient had myocardial infarction. So we'll take a look here, and we can click on that. And now you notice it allows us to add some details here. And if we expand this, we can put that the patient was hospitalized. If we double click, that adds over. Or we may say, okay, how was that diagnosed? And we can say the patient had a cardiovascular stress test during that episode. And again, we can add on that the patient now seen by Dr. Chun. So again, more details that are attached to that diagnosis. So when we look again, we've generated down here, and some other clicking we were doing before added some other diagnosis with out more specific details there. So say we want to add some other information, for example, family history. If we look at family history, again, we can start with our short list, and you'll see that we've broken this out again for y'all. And you can say, okay, the patient has a family history of gastric ulcers. So we click that, and then we can add those details. We can say, well, actually the father and the mother had it, and also the maternal aunt. So when we add that into the family history, you now see we have family history, gastric ulcer, father, mother, maternal aunt. So those are the ways we add that detail. The only one that's a little bit different on this is when we look at immunizations. And immunizations, we go over to immunizations to get into that. Now if you look here, this is their ongoing record, but we want to edit their immunizations. Let's say that we wanted to add an immunization. This basically shows all the standard ones that we utilize. And let's say the patient's had a hepatitis B. So we click on that, and it's going to pop a window out and say, when was that done? Well, say the patient doesn't know, but they know it was 2006. So if we go in here, we go in 2006. And if the patient knows the facility, we can drop that down and say that was done in a clinic. And then down here would be the details if we had given that to the patient. Okay, and again, comments we can add at any time. So we say, okay, we're happy with that. So we'll click Save and Complete. And then we're going to say okay there. And you can see now as we look into their history, we've now got that hepatitis B. So that's how we would add the immunizations. A little bit different, but it helps the program kind of flow there as far as the immunization documentation. Each one of these categories are very similar. You basically are going to pick something and then go with it, or if you need to, you can always search for it. Okay, Again, also those short lists, you can take the components and you can take it over to your short list by adding it on. So that's one way you can customize. So that's how we would update the history of the patient.